何？
The anime television short is a tricky format. It's hard to tell a deep, compelling story when you don't have a lot of time to work with, so most of them ends up being used on more avant-garde, idea-heavy or comedic narratives. But as always, a great story can come out of anything, and that certainly is the case here with the anime short I Don't Understand What My Husband Is Saying. This little gem may just knock on your door under the pretense of it being a fast meta-comedy filled with in-jokes and references. But after watching the 2 seasons we have gotten so far, it is clear to me that there is some serious prevailing storytelling going on. The beginning of the show describes a situation where Kaoru is dealing with Hajime in spite of his quirks. He's an otaku, his working habits are unorthodox, and he can be quite the eccentric around others. On the other hand, Kaoru is understanding, hardworking, social, and tolerant. However, it is then revealed to us that Kaoru too has some quirks of her own. She can overwork herself and has a small drinking problem, but that only makes her more endearing to follow. There is one episode where she kind of admits that she's not great at cooking, so she seeks out her dad, who is a chef, and has him teach her some tricks. That's just 1,000 times more compelling than just the quote-unquote perfect wife who could do everything from the get-go. She's no alcoholic, but she does tend to get herself drunk when work isn't doing her well. It is in her weak moments that we see how great Hajime is for her. He is a dependable and calm lover when she is returning home drunk and wild. And he knows how to calm her down and care for her. He even cooks too. I love the way the show handles stereotypes. It's not that it subverts them. Subverting the stereotypes would mean that the show makes you expect one thing, then does something else. I kind of feel like subversion of cliches and stereotypes in a way has become the new cliches. It's like everything a show needs to do today to be called clever is to pick a cliche, do the opposite, and then put the subversion level on it. No, I can't understand what my husband is saying doesn't subvert the stereotypes. There is no doubt that Hajime is a big otaku. Merchandise, blog writing, neat mentality, speaks in anime references, it's all there. The anime shows us that there is always more to real people than whatever label we put on them, or whatever box we place them in. It's making a case and point that just because society's put you in a box, that doesn't mean you can't be so much more than that, like how Hajime is a fully fledged otaku, but he still has many other qualities that makes him a valuable person and a great husband, and how Kaoru is a beautiful hardworking wife, but also got an eccentric side to her. It's one hell of a strong message, you know, not to judge your peers too harsh, but it also speaks to how great the writing the show got. It manages to craft compelling and layered characters in spite of not having much time to do so. It is inspiring when you think about how other anime with multiple seasons of content doesn't manage to do the same. The show has multiple moments where it slows down for a second and gives us a heartwarming interaction between our main characters. Like the moment when Kaoru tells Hajime that she doesn't care about whether or not other people understands him as long as she does. Or the moment where they're both out doing something they really don't want to on Christmas Eve, but then comes back home finding true comfort with each other. There is the moment they both realize that they'd like to be parents one day, and of course the moment that they realize they're actually going to be parents. It is moments like these, as well as the everyday casual bantering, that makes you believe in Kaoru and Hajime not just as individual characters but a couple as well. Not one episode of the show passes by without progressing the story, developing the characters, or introducing new ones in some shape or form. In fact, some episodes take a brief look into some of the side characters just to spice things up for the episodes where the whole cast is joined together. However, while most episodes got a sense of fast-paced sitcom-esque style to them, then some of them dives a bit further down into some splendid themes, mostly relating to the psyche of the main characters. The concept and theme of happiness is explored throughout the show on multiple occasions. One episode explores the idea of being too happy or feeling fulfilled. Kayoro is letting little things bug her, like the idea of whether or not she and Hajime are not compatible in terms of superstitious stuff like zodiac signs. At the end of the episode, she asks Hajime about his opinion on this, and he says he long ago checked that stuff out on the internet, realized they weren't compatible, but didn't care because of how it felt once they kissed. It's a nice way showing not to overthink whether or not you're into a person, but the main thing to take from it is that it can sometimes be hard to accept that you're just happy together with someone else, so you begin trying to find little things and wrongs in the relationship. Hajime does the same in a later episode where he thinks that he has to believe that there is an ending to the happiness at some point, because if he doesn't think of it that way, he won't be able to accept all the happiness that's been given to him having found Kayoro. In an episode where the couple are visiting Hajime's parents, Kayoro calmly thinks to herself that it is strange how no one around her probably realizes that she is bursting over with joy, just because of how her life is. It's a lovely little message about how once you accept you deserve the happiness you're given, you're free to be, well, happy. The magnum opus, I'm talking the absolute most delightful crown jewel, comes in the shape of the 11th episode of the first season. This episode shows us Kayoro before she met Hajime in some of her darker and lonelier moments. Upon watching the episodes, you will quickly notice the animation's visual style looks a bit different from the rest of the show. The lines and character models are more uneven and oddly looking, while the locations are playing around with unusual angles as to create an atmosphere of obscurity and discomfort. It's highly reminiscent of the style of Masaaki Yuasa and is only once seen again during the second season's 8th episode, which is also a flashback. The episode is presenting Kayoro's life before Hajime as a repetitive nightmare, where she is falling deeper into loneliness for every day passing. We get to see her realizing the repetitiveness of her current life and how she is slowly descending into despair because of the fact that people around her are getting married and she just isn't. And just when the abyss is reached, she wakes up next to Hajime. It is actually kind of a controversial message, because I don't view it as her having found her soulmate as much as her realizing that being with someone else is much better than being alone, which is pretty much a straight up punch in the throat to the otaku culture. I honestly love this episode because in just 3 minutes it manages to convey an actual melancholic dread followed by a satisfying soothing atmosphere. This episode alone is a strong testament to what short anime are capable of. Speaking of the episodes being 3 minutes long, the format of the show may very well be its most impressive asset. On average, each episode has between 40 and 50 cuts, paced in such a fashion that the jokes barely gets a second in between cutting in order to create a sense of suddenness, while the more serious moments are allowed to linger on for a bit longer time to let the viewer inhale the emotion. Every second of the show and even the title screen are wisely spent. Even the ending screens shows us little bits of Kayoro and Hajime further expanding their relationship, like them taking a shower together or having a night out. I don't understand what my husband is saying knocks on your door under the pretense of being a fast meta comedy filled with in-jokes and references. And that is actually not completely untrue. The fact of the matter just is that in between the laughs there is some world building, character developing and emotional moments that can compete with even the strongest of longer anime. I've heard some people describe the anime as a slice of life without the fat, and I wouldn't disagree too heavily with that notion. And you know what? If you ultimately feel like the show's a bit too fast, then hey, just watch it again. It's even better the second time around anyway.